Welcome. You're listening to Mind the Shift, a podcast about a shifting world and shifting minds. My name is Anders Bolling. In these times of mental and emotional turbulence and shifts, it is immensely important to find stable ground, to find that inner peace. But isn't that a self-centered approach when the shaky world out there needs our attention? Quite the opposite. I believe it is impossible for us to create a harmonious and abundant world if not each and every one of us first creates that harmony and sense of abundance within ourselves. And it all begins with vibration, sound. Today, I am very happy to introduce my guest, MarcoMissinato, a composer and a photographer, but first and foremost, a messenger of peace. And from what I've heard, he could just as well introduce himself as a philosopher, I might say. He was born in northeastern Italy, but has for several decades worked in the United States. In his own words, he is an artist and a creative communicator who uses the power of his heart to create music, words, and photography, to deliver supportive messages to people, to inspire others to dare into the voice of their heart and overcome their fears of limited beliefs and consequences, and most importantly, to produce creative experiences that support and facilitate the release of blocked emotions within ourselves and trigger the process of remembering who we truly are. Welcome to the show, Marco.
Thank you, Anders. It's really a privilege for me to be with you today and with your lovely crowd.
Thank you. I understand you have your base in the United States, I think Los Angeles, but right now you're in Rome. Why is that? Why are you in Rome?
Well, my journey in America felt completed a few years ago. And although I still go back and forward because I have a lot of things going on in America, I'm coming back to the Mediterranean. I've been away from Italy, from Europe for a very long time, and so my heart was starting to say it's time to go back now, because your people, meaning the Italian and the Mediterranean people, seems to be a perfect playground for you to share what is it that you have been gaining after all these years, and so. Yeah. I decided to, also my mother is 80 years old and she lives by herself. So I'm coming closer to her too. So there are different reasons why I'm here.
Okay. So you don't have your base in the United States anymore. So it is in Italy that you're going to.
I do have a little base and I go there often. Recently I was there because I was mixing a new album and finishing to write this book that I just completed. And also I have also other situation where I do workshops, seminars, and so I go back and forward.
Okay, beautiful. So this is maybe a little bit boringly traditional, but let's start out with how it all started, so to speak, with your childhood, your early years in Italy. And I heard in another interview that you described your young self as a sensitive child. Would you say that your creativity was apparent from the beginning when you grew up?
Absolutely. I believe that every child creativity, every soul come into this operating system with a huge amount of creativity and with their own uniqueness to apply this creativity so that they can create an impact in the environment. So I wasn't an exception. I was quite sensitive. I had a strong predisposition towards sounds and music, and it was my call, my going towards the music was, and it is still now, the way to communicate, to share something that, in my opinion, only sounds and music really can do. Music and sound have the ability to dissipate instantly the illusion of separation, the polarity game. If the music, of course, is conceived from a pure intent. So with no hidden agendas.
It's kind of I think it says somewhere on your website that you describe it as a portal to your heart, or a portal to the soul, maybe. That
Yes,
music is some
absolutely.
kind of a portal.
We do have several portals available, particularly at this time, at this very intense transition in time, where we need to move from the left brain hemisphere, where the ego is, and we need to shift into the soul, in the heart, where the soul resides. And so in order to be able to accomplish that, we have also some portals, and music is one of them for sure.
Okay, so but you started, you were creative already as a young kid, and you wanted to create music, and you created music, but then I understand when you started your professional life, when you became an adult, you actually started working as a photographer. So that's where that's also the other side of your creative work, so to speak. Can you tell us a little bit about the photography part, and how that was, and what that was all about? I understand, yes, you got pretty successful doing that.
Yeah, there was a time where, and I was quite young, I was still probably 20, 22, when I started to work in a newspaper here in Italy. This newspaper was at the beginning of its unfolding. And at the time I was helping, doing whatever it was needed. But this newspaper, at a certain point, started to upgrade itself, and it became a little bit more complex in its editorial graphics. And so there was a need for a photographer all of a sudden. And that excited me, of course. And I said, I'm going to take some picture. And so at that time, I bought a very old Nikkor mat, which is today the equivalent of an Nikon. Mm-hmm. And I started to take pictures. And then the newspaper started to become a magazine. It became a magazine. And then it became a bigger than magazine. And then when we went from black and white to color, and then became 2 magazines, and then 3 magazines, and then we get to Milan, and we started to become quite an important magazine. And so I was the exclusive photographer. And so as the magazine grew, I grew too as a photographer. Mm-hmm. And of course, at that time, I was doing music, but I was using the photography to collect some money in order to be able to continue to produce my music in studios. And so that was the way how I actually arrived to America, because the magazine sent me to America, in New York and San Francisco. That was like a few years later, to take some pictures of different situations that were very much relevant to the American scenario. And so that was the first time I arrived in America. And when I arrived in America, I felt a sense of spaciousness and freedom that I could not find in Italy. Italy is a fantastic, wonderful little country, but at that time, for a young, very creative artist, it felt very limiting.
More constraint? You mean the mental situation was a little bit more constrained, perhaps, and the culture was more pressing on you, or what was the feeling?
Well, the whole environment since I came into this planet was very compressed and very polarized. Italy at that time musically had very little to offer. You could only use a specific formula, which is a melodic song. And at that time, it was the late 70s or early 80s. The artist only had a chance to participate to a festival, which is Sanremo Festival, which is a very famous festival where you can sing the typical Italian song. Nothing wrong, that's beautiful, but my music wasn't about that. And so it would have been very hard for me to continue to explore my musicality within the Italian world of music. And so when in America, I felt like oh, now I can expand. I can, you know.
So you felt it was more open and welcoming to your kind of abilities and creativity.
Yeah, it was just a natural next step. It wasn't a coincidence that I was sent to America to take some picture because I had to make contact. It was probably by soul contract that at a certain point I was to be in America.
There are no coincidences, you know.
No.
So
no, there are no coincidences, but and we are the creator, but some part of the creativity is also established in terms of purpose from the soul before it choose to incarnate into the planet.
Yeah. Okay, so you were there and you became a successful photographer, but still creating music. And then I understand that you got some offers, lucrative offers, big offers from maybe other newspapers or magazines or so. But you turned them down. And to some people that sounds probably a bit crazy. But I heard you describe that as something that you just felt you needed to do because taking those offers wasn't really you. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, yes, both photography and music, both the photography industry and the music industry were heading a direction that wasn't in resonance with. And so, yeah, in my life, I did turn down many opportunities in the mundane world because I sensed that my energy was needed. If I wanted to be really in integrity with my soul, I would have to establish a certain level of parameters that the industries didn't really welcome, because both the industry are all about monetization. So when it's not about music, it's about money. It's not about photography, it's about money. And so nothing wrong with money. It's just that it wasn't really the reason why, the purpose I came here. My purpose was more to create something for support, more than accumulation of fame, accumulation of money, accumulation of power. I never been really felt fascinated by the aspect of this experience here on Earth.
Like fame, for instance, to be famous or to be lifted up by society. That's nothing that you really have longed for.
No, because the fame comes with a big price, and we are going to discover that very soon, as the narrative of the darkness that is been occurring for thousands of years is coming to surface. We will see how for example, the Hollywood artist, the famous Hollywood artists, what kind of price they have to pay in order to become what they became. Mm-hmm. And what are the personality structure of this individual. Normally have a tendency to have a narcissistic kind of tendency, or egocentric kind of thirst for power, for control, and so they are perfect target for the music industry and other industries, so that they can create this sensationalism, sensational stars that infuse the masses, generally infuse to the masses a subliminal message of obedience, of false messages, in order to continue their work of imprisonment of the matrix.
Yeah. Wow. Well, we'll talk a little bit more about that later on, the matrix and what's happening in the world today and all that, of course. But let's talk a little bit about your music also, that you are creating now and you have created for a long time. I know you are talking a lot about resonance, and you can hear spiritual teachers talk a lot about this also, of course. That life at its core is resonance, as it were, sound and resonance. That sound and resonance and vibration kicks it all off, so to speak. And how does that insight affect your kind of music. I'm hoping to be able to put a little snippet of your music in this interview here, because it's really beautiful, and I've bought the album. What's the name of it? Unfolding Secrets, I think. Is that the latest one?
No, that's the one before the latest one.
Okay.
Yes.
It's really, really, really beautiful, and it really resonates with me, and it goes directly to your heart. So is it that kind of music? It's very symphonical, and it's very spiritual, and it's very, very beautiful. Is that the kind of music that you've been creating all along, or has this is a very strange question. I'm just unfolding the question as I speak here, but well, as I was saying, the insight that everything starts with resonance and vibration, is that something that is at the core of your composing? For instance, are you always composing at the frequency that you feel or you know is the best to reach into the soul of the people that are listening?
Okay, so music, I mean, life is a creative process. So whether you do music or you do anything, it's always a creative process. And the creative process, the formula of the creative process is to follow your joy by taking action with no expectations.
Mm.
So with that vibrational offer, I begin a creative process. We are talking right now in music, but I try to make every aspect of my life a creative process. But when we talk to music, I never know what I'm doing. I cannot know what I'm doing, because if I do, then I cannot offer that innocence that is necessary for me to commune with source, from which I download the information that needs to be crystallized here on my journey. Okay, so let's say I sit down at the piano because a joy, something that gives me joy, it leads me towards the piano, and then something happen. The mind is not involved. It's only a pure communion with the here and now. And from that here and now, I connect. So I'm completely innocent. I don't have an agenda. So the ego is not involved. In that way, I can connect to source in a very direct way. And when I say source is basically another aspect of ourself that is in a higher level of appreciation, but still us, because there is no such a thing as separation. So in that way, I connect, and then something happened. And then from that's something that happened. Again, it triggers another joyful action. It leads me to something else, and then it leads me to something else. So moment by moment, things start to unfold. So when I did the Unfolding Secrets, the album that you bought, when I started, I didn't know I was going to play with a Philharmonic Orchestra. I didn't know there was going to be strings. I didn't know there was going to be a vocal soprano. I didn't know anything. I was just surrendering to my joy, to the process, to joy. And so from that surrendering, moment by moment, things start to happen. Oh, this is interesting. I like this. I can hear some strings. Okay, let's try some strings. Oh, I like strings, but you know what? I want to, and then you start to build, and then you get to the point where the synchronicity, because you are not blocking the flow with your mind that needs to control the how, the when, the what. You don't block that, so the synchronicity of life can fully take place because you are embracing fully the mysteriousness of life. And so life starts to take you to unexpected places. I found myself at a certain point in Ecuador. And that's where I met a music director of the Philharmonic Orchestra of Ecuador, and I proposed, very innocently, I say, "Yeah, I'm doing this." He said, "Wow, that's beautiful." I say, "Well, should we do a concert?" "Ah, let's do a concert." So everything started to unfold magically when you surrender completely to the now and to the joy that comes from your soul.
Yeah, and not having any expectations of the outcome. That's important, which is
Yes, the most important thing.
Really, really tricky. I had this question for later, but I can ask it now, because I try to live my life in that way, that I put out there to the universe what I desire, what I feel in my heart that I would like to experience, not in a detailed way, but just generally. And then I try to feel gratitude towards, as you call the source or the universe or whatever, the unified field, gratitude as if it had already happened, because this is what spiritual teachers say, and I resonate with that. I think it's true that it works that way. And then I let go, and I try to, as we were just talking about, not have any expectations of the outcome. But that latter part is really, really difficult, I think. I mean, sometimes it flows, but in this world, this is almost as some kind of a catch-22, if you see what I mean. It seems like a catch-22 that you should have a desire, something you want to do, you want to experience, and I mean, it can't be anything bad. It can't be anything that entails bad things for other people. Of course, it has to be something that is created by love. But anyway, something you desire, and then you should just retreat and not have any expectations. You should never think about it. And how can you do that? So that's my question to you. How do you do this? Can you feel that you can stay in that state of ease and flow and gratitude and just back away from the expectation?
Yes, the reason why we have all these expectations is because we have been programmed to believe in scarcity and survival and separation. If you remember, when we were little children, we would just play, fully immersed in the moment, but then we learned that there are certain things we need to look at reality, we need to be careful, or we need to plan, or we need to whatever, okay? And so many of us lose that ability to just be like children, meaning just play, just be playful. But how do you go back to that? It's very much related to how much you love yourself. The more you love yourself, the more you step into a knowing that that everything is always exactly as it's supposed to be. You start to see the perfection in everything, and most importantly, you don't need anymore to be approved or to be validated by the outcome. So the more you remove your need to being understood or being validated or being approved, the more you retreat into the here and now, and the more you can appreciate joy. It's not even gratitude, it's a step further, it's a sense of appreciation. Because gratitude is still, it's a little bit in the lower frequencies, because it still seems to be very polarized. While when you feel appreciation, you step in a situation where you completely line up with the symphony orchestra of life. You're perfectly, your instrument is perfectly tuned with the orchestra of life. Appreciation is the difference between me and a Jesus, just to give you an example, is just a different level of appreciation. Is as a higher level of appreciation than I do.
And maybe I'm a little bit below you. I don't know.
It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. I know. That's the joke. So yeah, and music, you mentioned the symphony of life here. It's actually the case that music, which you work with, is very good at. Most people can understand what you're talking about. If you use music as an analogy for all these spiritual things that we're talking about now to skeptical people. Most people can actually appreciate, they can understand what you're talking about, because they get immersed in music. Everybody get immersed in beautiful music and cannot really explain what it is that is happening, but there is some sense of being in the now moment, in the moment, and being appreciative if you love the music, of course. And that's I think that's a good way of explaining these things to people, to take the example of music. I was talking to a good friend just yesterday who is a bit skeptical towards these spiritual things, but he said he actually shown up when I was talking about music. He said, yes, that's very strange. Music is a very, very strange thing. I can't control my feelings and emotions when I listen to music. So it's very, very good to have that example. And I think you're familiar with the philosopher Alan Watts.
Yes.
Who lived some decades ago. And he said that, which I thought was so beautiful, that life isn't a journey. To say that life is a journey, well, we can talk about a journey. You do it, I do it all the time. It's a good analogy also, but it's not a journey from A to B, but it's more a symphony. Because a symphony is played, the point of a symphony isn't that it has a start and an ending point. The point of it is to just have it play and to listen to it. It's like, if you consider life that way, you never get anxious that you're getting old, for instance, or thinking that way. You can detach yourself from time a little bit.
Yes, even getting old is a program.
Yeah, that's true.
We are about to get rid of very soon. We are going to resolve all these programs that we inherit since we enter this inverted matrix, where we've been inside for about 10,000 years now, and all this matrix is coming to an end. We unplug from it, and so we can see right now that everything is falling apart, and we are soon to be going back to the original operating system of what it means to be human being. And in that original operating system, there is no such a thing as aging. There is no such a thing as a disease. There is no such a thing as scarcity of or survival, anything like that. This was part of just an experience that we give consent to, and it was an amazing experience, because now we can, as we get closer to graduation time, we are going to be really the master of separation, master of low frequency fragmentations, and so we will have a lot to share and a lot to teach with many other civilizations that didn't have the opportunity to, and maybe not even the courage to embark in such a harsh operating system as the one we have been in the last 10,000 years.
So let's delve a little bit deeper into that, because I was actually going to ask you about these things now. Many people are scared about the messiness that's going on out there in the world right now, the events unfolding. And as you said just now, you have the view that, and others have too, that humankind will soon come back to a state, the true state of being that we were some time ago. You talk about 10,000 years back. I mean, there are others talking about other time spans, but somewhere around there. And that we, for some reason, somehow agreed to have that state of being altered. Can you elaborate a little bit on that? Are you referring to what some people are talking about, beings from other parts of the universe coming to Earth, manipulating humans that were on this planet at the time, and then creating in a way a different species?
Yeah, what is important, whatever narrative we decide to embrace, I think the most important thing is to remove the victim story from the narrative, because there is no such a thing as victim. You know, we are the creator of this of our reality. So yes, there is at certain point in our journey as human being, we have been proposed by other alien forces to alterate our experience in order to make it more intense. It's like if you play tennis and you play very well tennis, and at a certain point somebody come and say, hey, you're playing so good. How about we make the game a little bit more difficult or a lot more difficult?
Yeah.
And you say, yes, that's exciting. Let's do that because I want to become even better tennis player, right? And so all of a sudden you find the tennis court much bigger, or maybe the racket very heavy, or the ball doesn't bounce correctly, or your body is not agile as it was before. So that's what happened. I say 10,000 years ago. Other people believe different time. It doesn't really matter. But at a certain point in our journey, we maybe in a little bit in a very innocent way, naive way, you can say in a little bit in a naive way, we accepted the alteration of our experience here on Earth, and as a result of that, we've been encapsulated in a matrix that is called inverted, because everything is upside down where we are right now. However, at first it didn't work.
You mean it's upside down in the way that there is polarization in the first place, or is it upside down because it's well, can you explain it? Because I mean, it's a physical plane that we are in, so there is time, for instance, and there is dark and light and all that. So that's difficult to think away if we are going to have a three-dimensional physical plane. Those things are normally in place, aren't they?
Yeah, although there are subtle differences, and sometimes not so subtle differences. Inverted means that everything that comes from outside is upside down. Just look at the system. I mean, you go to school to learn some truth, you go to religion, you go to culture. If you really are tuned in with your truth in the soul, you see that everything is basically upside down. They tell you something, but it's true the opposite most of the time, including the health establishment. It's all reverted. Okay, so that's what it means. It is inverted. Everything is inverted, and in fact, right now we are going to come to a point where we are going to face all this inversion, and most of the people are going to be shocked to find out that their heroes are not so benevolent as they thought, for example. You know, so it's we've been navigating through a journey that is made most of the time of deceptions, and these deceptions are amplified by our ego, which is an artificial implant. It is not.
It's part of the alteration.
It's part of alteration. In fact, we as human beings, when let's say all the control devices were on, now they're all mostly off. We're on. We were so powerful that introducing us inside an inverted matrix wasn't enough. It wasn't working. And so in order to make it really work, they put a little tiny implant in the left hemisphere of our brain, which is called ego. And this ego basically is a storyteller. It's a storyteller that constantly creates a story in order to slow down as much as possible our evolution. And it constantly
the inner critic, the annoying roommate in your head.
Exactly. Yes, it's a voice that constantly talk about how bad it was the past, or how bad it could be the future, or be careful, or it constantly try to slow you down. And it's been a wonderful tool, because it really gave us an opportunity to really master this experience, and many of us are completely fallen into the ego. They completely identify with the ego, to the point that they are almost zombies. I mean, they're just following the curriculum of the society, which is feeding, is constantly, the system is constantly connecting and having a conversation with the ego, right?
But now, that has been the norm for thousands of years, I would say.
It is.
What you're saying now, it's been the natural
normal.
state.
But what happened is that about not long time ago, we as human consciousness, human consciousness, we decided that this experience was enough. And so we basically unplugged the matrix, the inverted matrix. And therefore, since then, you can start to notice, it's becoming more and more noticeable how everything is collapsing, how all these institutions that were built in order to create an imprisonment is collapsing all together. And in fact, the ego right now is going crazy because it doesn't receive any more signal from outside. And so the only way for the ego to find nutrition at this point is to engage with another ego. That's the only way he can copy with, you know. Otherwise, while before there was a lot of information constantly nurturing the ego, feeding the ego, now they're slowly diminishing.
Yeah. Are you talking about time frames here, or because I in my view, time is very malleable and it doesn't really exist. Well, it exists as a tool here on Earth, but would you say that we are within a few years, as we perceive years, this is going to happen, and we are going to see big shifts within 2, 3, 4, 5 years? Or would you like to talk about time frames at all in this context?
Yeah, it's a little bit tricky because time, like you said, is malleable, and there is also a time that works at the individual level and the time that works at the collective level. But just to have an idea, the planet is already a 5th-dimensional frequencies right now, and the collective, the human collective, should join the 5th-dimensional Mother Earth within 2030, 2035, meaning that by that time, there will be no more ego in our system, and we will be completely, fully returned to the original operating system. But there are things that are happening much quicker than that in the next, even the next 6 months. Already it's going to be quite intense. A lot of happening in the next 6 months, and then in the years to come.
These concepts are so fascinating. It resonates with me, but I mean, I don't know if this is true what I hear, but where do you get this information from? Do you get downloads yourself, or do you get inspired by what others say and to talk about and write? And
well, okay, the information, okay, everything is inside ourselves.
Yeah.
Nobody can teach us anything. The only thing that can happen is that somebody can help us to remember what we already are. Remember. Okay, so there is a knowing within myself as much as there is a knowing within yourself. And then the more you tune in with your soul, the more your soul orchestrate outside circumstances to get confirmation of what you already know. So that's how I gain. So I know something, I feel something in terms of resonance. And then the resonance lead me to the synchronicity that gives me a confirmation from the outside world. And so I might have a dream that give me some confirmation, or I might meet someone or some teaching or some situation, some experiences that give me the confirmation of what I already feel, but maybe I could not express in terms of words, but I already was in my cellular structure present, and now I am able to crystallize it into in a conversation.
Okay,
so that's how it works.
That's beautiful. Yeah, you mentioned one more question on that big issue that we're talking about now. I just it just came to me that I wanted to ask you about the soul and our experience here on Earth, because all that you're talking about now is about humankind as an entity, more or less, changing from having been in a paradisiacal state 10, 20,000 years ago, and then having this altered state, and then now coming back to the original state, paradise on earth, or whatever you want to call it. But if we are spiritual beings, basically having a physical experience, a human experience, does this really matter that much? I mean, on the, like you say, 5D level, on the higher spiritual realm level, because as far as I understand it, our home is not here on earth. Our home is somewhere else, and we are eternal souls, and we decide to go down here to have experiences. So it's really, I mean, if you see it on that level, from that perspective, from that higher level, does it really matter that much that we've had this altered state, this ego programming for 10,000 years? Maybe you're not saying that it's been a terrible thing. You're saying it's just been an experience. I don't know. What's your take on it?
It's been a wonderful experience. Okay, from my perspective, this is how it works. The soul, from his ethereal, spaceless, timeless, formless environment, look through the horizon of the infinite amount of different possibilities for his next adventure. And he searched for the hologram or operating system, whatever you want to call it, that the most resonate for him, for what he needs to, where he needs to go first, next. Okay, because the soul has basically two purposes. One is continue his evolution in order to go back home. And the second one is to support life. These are the only two relevant situations for the soul. And so based on wherever he is at, he scans through the infinite possibilities. And in our case, get curious about this little tiny blue-green planet that is pulsating. And so the curiosity, he goes to look at the curriculum, and he gets fascinated by what kind of challenges and what kind of incredible offering and potentiality has this little blue planet. And as he keep looking, observing the situation, he gets excited, and then the excitement, of course, I'm using human words.
Yes, of course, it's difficult to explain in different ways.
Yeah, the excitement become a yes, and right in the moment where he feels yes, he finds himself at the verge of this vacuum, where he let himself fall. And as he fall into this tunnel, he start to, by contrast, he start to forget who he is, and he start to condense himself in form, in shapes. He start to feel contained into a body, and until he basically land in the fetus of the mother that he has chosen at the moment of, because he chose the scenario, you know.
Yeah.
Some people choose to be woman or man, or in specific geographic location. Some others choose very difficult situation, like having a handicap, or having an abusive family, or being very, very rich, or very, very poor, or being very beautiful, or very, very ugly. It's all, this is, operating system is an experiment in diversity. So there is an infinite amount of possibility that the soul can choose from at the moment of its incarnation. And so once he get into the fetus, that's when he start to commune with not only a physicality. So the limiting of a physicality and the limiting of space and the idea of time, but also he start to feel his first emotions. Not all the operating system available are including the idea of emotion. And generally speaking, usually the first emotion that we feel is the emotion of abandonment.
Yeah.
Because despite the fact that we forgot who we are, yet still we feel abandoned because we left home, we left source, we went so deep, like we went deep in the bottom of the ocean, you know, where it's completely dark and it's very contractive. There is a lot of pressure, and and so usually the first emotion that we feel is the abandonment.
Well, I think everybody can acknowledge that they sometimes have felt a sense of abandonment that they can't really explain. They can't really point to anything that tells them that they should feel abandoned, because they have their family and everything, but in their heart they feel abandoned.
That's why the first track of my latest album is called The Abandonment, because every track of the album is an emotion.
Yeah, many people are asking why we can't remember these things when we are born. When you talk with people about these things, that we are eternal and that we reincarnate and so on and so forth. But in my understanding, the reason why we forget is that if we were to remember everything, this wouldn't be a school. We wouldn't learn anything. So, I mean, then if you see it in that way, it's a wonderful thing. You realize that you need to learn things. You've probably heard a lot of stories like I have from people who have had near-death experiences, and they come back and they remember a lot of the experience, but many of them say things like, I know that I was being taught so many things when I was up there. I was being taught how everything works. And I remember feeling or thinking that, oh yeah, of course it's like this. How could I ever forget? But then when they are resuscitated and they come back here on Earth, they can't remember the details of that. They can just remember that I know that I was told the truth, but I can't remember when I get back here, which is really frustrating. But in a sense, it makes sense, because otherwise, as I said, this wouldn't be a school. But are you saying that in this future that you're talking about, when we are rising up to the next level, to the fifth dimension, or whatever you want to call it, that we are actually going to remember who we are all the time? So then is my follow-up question, what is Earth going to be? What kind of a school is Earth going to be then?
Okay, the process of remembering, it never ends. There is always something more to remember. Because if you remember everything, then you're back to source. You're back to one breath, and everything and nothing is there. And
that makes sense.
It doesn't exist anymore. So, and that's what makes it such exciting, this journey that we are all at, because there is always more to become, more to discover, more to unfold, more to create, right? And the beautiful thing is that as we become fully the creator, not only we impact our own personal state of being, but we impact everything, source itself included, you know? So as we go back to source, home, source itself also have an orgasmic experience, and it keeps vibrating, expanding like in a spiral, because we are all spirals here, right? So we never do the same circle. Every time we go to the next circle is different, because it has a different angle, right? So your question was,
well, what kind of a school will Earth become when we raise our vibration?
It's going to be a wonderful school. It will be simply removed the idea of fear, the idea of separation as harsh as it is right now. So we will go back to the creative process as it was originally, as it can be right now too, but it's much more difficult because we have so much programming, so much fear, so much separation. Once this separation and programming is being removed, now we are still navigating and still discovering, but using joy, using enthusiasm, excitement, using not such a polarized situation. It's much less polarized. So there is not such a severe fight between darkness and light like it is right now, right? There is nothing like that anymore, you know.
Sounds beautiful. Well, I guess simply the notion that we are eternal, that we don't die, would be enough for us to raise our vibration, and then we wouldn't have to remember all the other things. But if we remember that, so many good things will probably come out of that.
Yeah, and that notion is available to us right now. You just connect with your soul, and you just ask, how old are you? It will tell you, will answer to you. Say, what? What do you mean how old I am? There's no such thing as age, you know.
It's not relevant.
We always been existing. We exist, and we always will exist.
Yeah, yeah. What do you say to someone who gets upset when you talk about the soul choosing its parents, choosing its circumstance that it's going to have when it incarnates on Earth? You know, classical example is a poor child born in a poor village in Africa, parents are starving, and you have the guts to say that this person has chosen that circumstance. Then, well, you know what people are saying.
Yeah.
How do you? What's your answer to those people who get upset?
Not always is actually necessary to give an answer. What has to happen is, this is the first step what we need to take right now is to step out from the emotionally charged way to see things and navigate through our journey, so that we are completely taken by our emotions, and we need to embrace neutrality. And neutrality doesn't mean to be passive or to be indifferent. It means to be more effective, because you are not taken by your reaction, your emotional reaction, but you are connect with the soul, and the soul never judge. The soul doesn't judge right and wrong. The soul just see the perfection in everything, and from that perfection it chooses based on resonance what it resonates to him and what it doesn't. So that's the best way right now to, in a certain way, support this transition. It's like if I am in a room with a room with a bunch of people, and the house is on fire. Okay, I can allow my emotions to take completely over, and I have started to move people everywhere because I have to get out and save myself, because I am driven by my emotions, fear in this case. Or I can center myself and stay in neutral, and from that neutrality I can see much more clearly the situation, and I actually can provide support for a lot of people, because I can think clearly, I can feel clearly, I am connected, and so I'm perfectly guided by source itself to go through the experience. So the people that answer to the idea that the soul has chosen and they get in reaction, every time there is a reaction, life is telling you that there is something inside, a program inside yourself, and needs to be removed because it's not in integrity with your system. So me providing a reaction to somebody by saying something, it means that I am pushing their buttons so that they can see, they create an opportunity. There is an opportunity has been created for them to see something that is not organic, that is not in line with their inner truth. And it's an ego-based situation. And so every time somebody comes to me, or a situation comes to me and push my buttons, is a teacher, is teaching me, show me, is a friend, is a gift, but is telling me, look, Marco, there is something inside you that still is driven by negative emotions, and you need to address it so that you can continue to raise your frequencies like everything else is doing. And so this situation will keep coming until we resolve within ourselves.
Yeah, that's very wise, I think. Still, probably wouldn't be a bad idea to have a couple of well formulated sentences to say to these people, because many people who get upset when they hear this concept, they're not, I mean, they mean well, because they think about these poor children and who live in poverty, and people who are abused, and they think that we have to help these people, we have to do everything in our power to, and it's unjust. It's unfair that they've been born under those circumstances. I've been born as a rich child in a happy family, and they are just poor and being abused, and it's not fair. We need to do something about it. And how can you have the guts to say that, oh, they have chosen this, and it's not a bad thing to have a thing or two to answer these
Absolutely.
people.
We can try that. First of all, this is linear thinking. Okay. It's not holistic thinking, because when you judge a situation from that point of view, that very narrow point of view, you don't see the whole path of those souls that have chosen that.
Of course.
But most of the time, what happens is that a family of souls that say, I want to have an experience in having, I really, for some reason, I need to really experience a tremendous amount of restriction in my body, or whatever, so and you need to experience being a facilitator of that. Okay, so you will be the bad guy that hurt me, and I will be the little child that is hurt. Also, because by doing that, we create an energetic field that shows that doesn't work to humanity. So by doing that, we help humanity to understand better what is right from what is wrong. Okay, should we do it? Okay, action. And we just protect ourselves. From the soul point of view, it's the blink of an eye. It's not a big deal. All right. Of course, once we get into the action and we completely forget the whole thing, and we decide to see the things from the ego point of view, which is very polarized, is very dualistic, where it's constantly judge a situation from right to wrong, to bad to good, to light and dark, then of course the experience becomes very, very dramatic. The emotions come in. I'm angry, I'm upset, this is not right, it's not fair. This is all experience, wonderful experience that we are having, but they are all within this polarization. And right now this polarization is collapsing. And so the way out is to practice more and more neutrality.
Yes, this concept of neutrality is really beautiful. It may not sound that beautiful, but it is when you come to think about it, because and you've talked about this in videos I've heard, and I think so many more people today, in particular, should they really need to have this mindset of neutrality, because there are so many things happening out there, and it's, as I said in the beginning here, it's a mental and emotional messiness. If you look at the figures, how many people die in wars and things like that, it's not as bad. It's actually been worse before, but then we were more programmed to not get upset, I guess, because, well, that's a side track. But it's really a good thing to, I mean, after the election in the United States, for instance, and considering the climate change issue that makes people scared to death, and all those kinds of things really point to the fact that people need to have a neutrality, because, as you say, when you have a neutral view on things, your judgment gets a lot better. You can see it more clearly what needs to be done in the moment, and so you can do that. Otherwise, you're just blocked with blinkers.
Yes, so, and also you step into appreciation, you step into your sovereignty, because you are not victim anymore. You don't feel victim, because reaction is a form of victimhood. Somebody outside there is doing this to me. So I'm not the creator of my life. I'm not responsible. I don't have the ability to respond. And therefore, I am a victim, I'm powerless. And so we are validating a narrative that is what the system wants. They want us to have the fear and feeling powerless and feeling victim and feeling angry. That's exactly the way how we feed the matrix. Once we step in neutrality, we don't give nutrition to the matrix anymore, and the matrix collapses, because the matrix can operate only through our consents.
And when you say the matrix, do you refer to people or just a structure that has been there?
I'm referring to this inverted matrix that is collapsing right now, and is doing its best to keep us in the polarity game, in the dualistic game. But it's now time for is reason to be has been fulfilled. We gained already the experience that we needed, and so now it needs to be let it go. It's a little bit more like the caterpillar that become a butterfly, basically.
Okay.
You know, we don't need the cocoon. We don't need the cocoon anymore.
But you're talking about nation states, banks, jobs, medical system, all those things. The whole, the whole works. Okay, so this has been a wonderful conversation. Maybe we should wrap it up with this reasoning that we're having right now. And I want to ask you what you would say to those many people today who are afraid, who are worried that this messiness and this turbulence out there is dangerous, and they're maybe watching the news every day, listening to the news, and are worried that the world is simply going down the drain. What would you say to, what would you recommend these people to do?
The most important thing right now is really to connect with our soul. Because all those emotions that you just described, they are all coming from the narrative of the ego. The soul doesn't feel that. It's not a real, it's just a dream that is created by an artificial intelligence. The way out is to connect with the soul and position the soul at the driver's seat of our vehicle. And in order to do that, we need to start to remove ourselves from the narrative that is coming from the medias, from the TVs, from the environment out there, and start to look within ourselves and start to find the courage to take responsibility. And meaning, again, stopping feeling victim of the circumstances and waiting for a savior. We have this program that we are all waiting for somebody to save us. That's an interesting dream. Reality, there is nothing to be saved from, because we are the creator. We are creating everything. And so if we don't like what is we are creating, whether individually or collectively, we have to look within ourselves. In the same way as if you look at the mirror yourself, and you want the image that is projected by the mirror to smile, you have to smile first. Otherwise, the mirror will not smile to you unless you smile first.
Oh, that's a nice image, yeah.
So that's the kind of responsibility. We have to look within ourselves, and we need to start to listen the voice of the soul. How we do that? There are many ways to do that. Most of us, if we say, close your eyes, don't think, it's almost impossible. There is so much narrative that is coming from the ego constantly. However, no matter how busy is our chatter, our chatting inside our head, between one thought and another, between one word and another, there is always a space. In that space, there is a soul waiting for us. So if we can manage to stretch more and more that space, whether through the use of meditation, through the use of good music, communion with nature, connecting with stillness, petting your dog, your cat, or embarking in a creative process like painting, dancing, whatever joy. The joy always create a chance for you to stretch the busyness of the chatter of the ego and connect with your soul. So we have to follow the joy. Many of us are confused to the point that they cannot even distinguish what is real joy from an artificially created joy. Well, you have to do one step at a time. But the truth is, deep inside, we know. It's just, we know. It's like we have been inside a theater for thousands of years, in a dark theater, watching a movie.
Yeah.
And for thousands of years, we've been watching this movie to the point where we believe that we are the movie. All right. So we see the actor, the bad, the good, and the ugly, and we believe that that's us.
Yeah.
What's happening right now is that the light of the theater is coming up more and more and more, slowly, not so slowly actually. And so it's getting harder and harder to see what is in the screen because it's becoming more and more pale, the screen.
Interesting.
And so most of us are still so in fear to stretch their belief and understand what's going on. And so they keep stubbornly trying to watch the movie, but it's getting harder and harder to see what is going on in the screen. And it's getting more and more undeniable to see that we actually are in a theater and there is a projector behind that is projecting a movie. So that's what's happening right now. And this is terrifying for many, many people. And it can also create a lot of anger. But as we start to realize that that was just a show, it wasn't real, and we start to become more neutral, then we can actually get into the appreciation and say, hey, that was an amazing movie. Wow, you act so well. And everybody would be clapping and would start, the good and the bad, the ugly, all of a sudden.
Can you imagine? We actually believed this for thousands of years. That's amazing.
Right, exactly. And then, of course, at a certain point, we will hear this a voice that says, okay, ladies and gentlemen, the show is finished. You can walk towards the exit. Right.
That's wonderful. Fantastic. So, I love that. I love that.
So that's what we are facing right now. And so people like you, like me, which are not better, they're just in a level of appreciation, in a level of forgetfulness that is less. So we remember a little bit more. And so we are equipped to provide support for these people because we are going from the old dream. We are crossing a bridge to go to the new dream. And so people like you, like me, and many others, and we are growing in number, are in the bridge right now and are ready for helping the other people with great compassion and with great joy, not in a way of sacrificing yourself, but following your joy to pull and help people to cross the bridge to the other dream.
Wonderful, fantastic. I love this message. MarcoMissinato, where can people find your work, your music, your photography, and also things that you have said and written? Do you have a website or two?
Yes, I have a number of websites, but they are all under the umbrella of MarcoMissinato.com. So Marco, M-A-R-C-O, Missinato, M-I-S-S-I-N-A-T-O.com.
Perfect. Very, very nice. Thank you so much, Marco, for being a guest on the show. And you're doing a tremendously important work for humankind.
Thank you. And so you do.